Hi everybody, welcome to a video of 3 more dumb He-Man plot holes. This is picking up from my previous video, which I recommend checking out, but isn't necessary. This is just a video where I pick apart some really annoying plot inconsistencies from my favorite cartoon show ever, because that's what you do. On we go, and again, none of these are in any particular order. Number 1, Eternian space travel. Alright, what exactly is up with the lack of spacecraft in He-Man? We have all manner of airships, sure, and we even know the Eternians travel to their moon, Phantos, often for Photanium. But why don't the Eternians fly to space more frequently? We even had Skeletor fly into space in a few episodes as an excuse of him not being at Snake Mountain. And also, Duncan's rocket in the Christmas special was so fragile, even Orko could break it. Also, the Eternians are just stunned at space travelers from other planets. So what is up with this? Is it just that Eternia's internal situation is so unstable that they can't have a space program? Or is Duncan simply not capable of building decent rockets? Even Trollans seem to be able to make decent spaceships, so why is it such a hurdle? I suppose one reason for this is that He-Man, for instance, almost always travels to Etheria and other places via magic portals. So, is magic the problem? Should the Eternians stop using it so they can better their space travel technology? I think it's a bit disconcerting when on the Star Trek scale, Eternia would be considered underdeveloped for not having discovered warp speed yet. Number 2, why does the Sorceress bother leaving Grayskull? Last time I picked on Skeletor, so let's now go ahead and admit that even Grayskull's caretaker, the Sorceress, isn't necessarily the smartest person on Eternia. Now tell me, what is the fastest way in any He-Man episode to get He-Man's ass into gear? I'll tell you right now that aside from the bad guys just straight up attacking Palace Eternos, it's whenever the Sorceress thinks it's a good idea to leave Castle Grayskull. Now this is a plot element that the He-Man writing staff was never consistent about, so I'll get into why it bothers me so much after I explain how inconsistent it was. From the very beginning of the series, there's constant alteration of whether or not the Sorceress contacts He-Man via telepathy or by becoming Zoar and letting him know he's needed at Grayskull that way. In the Cosmic Comet, she was too lazy to walk to the gate to speak with He-Man and Duncan, but in Teela's quest, she doesn't just fly out of Grayskull, she even wrecks Merman's staff. And sure, I get it that hanging around a spooky castle all day might get tiresome, but we've also seen she's had her liberal assortment of overnight guests. No, I'm serious, I can never get over this random scene in Eternal Darkness where Stratos is just casually at her place. Must get pretty cold and lonely in that castle. But here's the thing. In about 75% of the incidents where Sorceress leaves Grayskull for any reason, it usually turns out to be a bad idea. Most of those 25% when it doesn't, it's when the Sorceress is just sending a message to He-Man to come to Grayskull. Which is unnecessary, because A, if you're already there, why not just straight up tell He-Man what you're up to, and B, you have telepathy! Now, as for all those other incidents, we have Sorceress helping He-Man out, which at least is a worthy cause to endanger herself. But then we have baffling incidents like the Temple of the Sun, where she's just flying around the desert for no reason. And of course, Teela's Triumph, where she just weirdly decides to fly over Snake Mountain, which is never a good idea, no matter who you are. And sure, in the Temple of the Sun she explains via telepathy, I might add, that she was studying weird magic in the desert, which smells of BS, but checks out considering the villain of the day. But in Teela's Triumph, she just bailed from Grayskull to go check on Teela because plot. For f***'s sake. Number 3, Orko's personality. Okay, last time I talked about Trolla, but let's now turn our attention to Orko himself. Because considering how much we know about Orko, he's probably the most consistently inconsistent character on the show. Despite some variations, He-Man always tends to act like himself. Teela's always decisive if a little dumb sometimes, and Skeletor's plans range from megalomaniacal to the completely absurd. But at least he's always evil. So, just to demonstrate the inconsistency of Orko's character, let me ask you a question. How old is Orko? And sure, he's an alien, so let's simplify that. Does Orko act like a child, a teenager, or an adult? And the answer is, yes he does. So yeah, we have Orko basically act childlike a lot of the time and basically being very naive for the reasons that he basically serves as the audience proxy for the show at times. That's why we see childlike behavior, he hates cleaning his room, he has a lot of toys, he tends to play with little kids in most episodes, basic stuff like that. Occasionally we have a slightly tricky dicky and defiant Orko, a bit moody, and someone who tries to avoid getting into trouble. Now yeah, some of this stuff overlaps with the childlike Orko, but you could also argue that he acts a bit like an obnoxious teenager from time to time. And then we have to recognize that Orko does occasionally hand out advice to younger characters and is basically in a long-term romantic relationship with someone with clearly developed breasts. And before that we had Orko's short-lived flirty streak with other female characters. So how come Orko can't act consistently? I think that has to do with the simple fact that Orko has no face. As well, he's an extremely cartoony character in a cast filled with muscle men and hourglass figure women. Basically, Orko kind of just became that character who could be anything and anyone the writers wanted him to be. Orko does have one consistent characteristic. He's a comic relief. But because he's not recognizably of any age group, we do get this weird spectrum of possible age groups he could fit. And that's fine. It just gets kind of funny how in one episode he can't grasp certain basic concepts, while in other episodes he's giving life lessons to little kids. And yes, there will be another follow-up video to this one, talking about more plot holes in the future. Until then, I have the power, so can you.